My wife ran off to the US with her lover 5 years ago, and now she's got terminal lung cancer. Before she died, she flew for over 10 hours just to see me one last time. With her final breath, she looked into my eyes and whispered in my ear, "Ben, I know you're a good man. Please take care of Eric and my child after I'm gone." When Tina passed, I wasted no time. I called someone to take her to the funeral home. No way I was spending money on a fancy hearse to move her unlucky corpse. Wrapped her in a cheap mat, found an old scrap collector, and paid him $20. He just followed behind my car on his tricycle. At the funeral home, I ignored the judgmental looks from the staff and said straight up, "Give me the cheapest cremation package. Just turn her into ashes." There, Tina's body was in the furnace, when her beloved Eric showed up, sobbing. Looked like he was her real husband if you didn't know better. Internally, I was smirking. What a drama. Tina's love for him was something. Eric was holding a baby who just stared at him blankly. Once he composed himself, he came over to me straight away. First thing he said was, "Give me $1,000, the kid's got no formula." Couldn't help but chuckle. "Your kid doesn't have milk? What's that got to do with me?" Eric's eyes widened. "Ben, don't pretend you don't know. Tina entrusted us to you before she died. If my kid starved because you didn't help, would you feel good about it?" I casually fiddled with my watch. "Sure," she said that. But I smirked. I didn't agree. She betrayed me and still wants me to take care of her lover and kid? No thanks, I'm not crazy. Eric got angry, raising his voice. "What do you mean, not real? You can't have kids. I did what you should have. I fulfilled your duty as a son-in-law. You should be grateful. Treat me well. Help Tina raise her son. Don't you get it?" True, I was naturally unable to have kids. But my family, poor farmers for 8 generations, had nothing to inherit. Didn't matter if I had kids or not. I smiled coldly. "But I'm broke. Didn't you guys take all my money?" Not lying. Before they ran off, they cleaned out my house of anything valuable. My Mont Blanc wallet, my Rolex watch, became their ticket to a life of luxury. Before leaving, Eric even kicked my dog. The poor thing didn't eat right for days. When Eric heard I was broke, his eyes nearly popped again. He pointed at my watch. "How can you afford a fancy watch if you're broke? It's fake." He then pointed at the red Audi parked at the funeral home. "How'd you get such a fancy car if you're broke?" "Rented." He was so mad he couldn't speak. The kid in his arms started wailing out of hunger. Seeing the child cry, Eric lost his aggression. He softened his tone and pleaded, "Look at the kid. Please. We spent everything on Tina's treatment. We sold the house too. I have nothing left. She told me to come find you. Said you were kind and wouldn't abandon her kid." He held the hungry child out to me, trying to play the sympathy card. I glanced at the baby. Cute, chubby, looking around for milk. Too bad. Not my kid. Why should I care? I'm broke, believe it or not. I tossed those words over my shoulder and turned to leave. "Wait." Eric hurriedly blocked my way. Seeing that his act didn't work, he panicked. He took off a hefty gold bracelet from his arm, nearly begging. "This is a family heirloom Tina gave me. I can't bring myself to sell it. Could you loan against it so I can buy formula?" Ha! 7 years married to Tina and I never knew about any family heirloom. Now this, ending up with him. Oh, that's a love token. I'm not keeping it. Eric was desperate. He held the baby closer to me. "Ben, just look at this adorable kid. Can you really let him starve?" "Yeah, I can. I'm not his dad," I said and left Eric in shock, driving away. After cremating Tina and dismissing Eric, life's looking up these days. Then, while enjoying my hot pot at home, I heard a loud knock. Through the peephole, I saw a cop outside my door, along with Tina's parents looking furious. Eric, with the kid, stood behind her mom Lucy. As I opened the door, Lucy stormed in, pointing at me and yelling, "Ben, where did you bury my daughter?" "Oh, that's what you want to know." Calmly, I walked to the stinky trash can, picked up a box by a corner, and tossed it to Lucy. "They're her ashes. Take them before I throw them out." You. Lucy stuttered. "You put my daughter's ashes in a crappy box." I laughed. Hey, look closer. That's a Chanel box. Having her resting in Chanel. What a life. Huh? Lucy almost fainted, collapsing into her husband's arms. I ignored her and politely let the cop inside. Officer, what can I do for you? I shot a glance at Eric and then smiled sweetly at the police officer. I'm not breaking any laws by not supporting my wife's lover and their kid, right? The officer looked amused, clearly enjoying the drama. No, I'm not here for that. He pointed at Lucy. This lady claims that the place you're living in was her daughter's property before marriage. Now that her daughter's gone, and since you refuse to help with the kid, she's here to take the house back so they can sell it to support their grandson. I'm here to make sure you cooperate and move out. Yep, we're here to kick you out, Eric said with a smug look on his face. The mention of moving out got my attention. The house did belong to Tina before we got married. According to the new marriage law, after her death, I really had no claim to it. Despite being broke now, Tina was quite a beauty in her younger days with her long curly hair that turned many heads. She was once a sycophant to some rich brat, and after he had enough, he gave her this house to get rid of her. She hid that backstory from me and charmed the naive, fresh out of college me with her looks. She claimed the house was bought with lottery winnings and assured me she was a staunch dink, dual income, no kids, believer, not bothered by my infertility. So, with the millions my parents had saved for my marriage, filled with dreams of a happy union, I moved into that place, until she almost left me without a penny. Officer, if this was Tina's property before marriage, then I should vacate it, I said. But I pulled out the property deed from the bedside cabinet and handed it to him with a grin. Look, the house is now under my dad's name. The officer checked the deed and our family record, nodded at me and said, yep, the house is indeed yours now. This can't be. Impossible, Lucy exclaimed, suddenly energized. She had been leaning weakly against her husband but sprang up like a spring. Snatching the deed from the officer, she read it. Owner, Ben. Ownership type, solely owned. Seeing this, she was furious, stomping around the room. How can this be? Officer, check him out. This deed must be fake. Eric was also dumbstruck, grabbing the deed only to find the same truth, nearly fainting himself. Tina's dad, Mike, almost reached out to help but thought better of it upon looking at Lucy. I laughed at Lucy, this deed's legit. Your daughter gifted the house to me voluntarily. I pulled out another sheet from the cabinet, a voluntary house transfer contract, and tossed it to Lucy. See for yourself, your daughter's signature is right there. Lucy was speechless, collapsing to the ground muttering, how could this happen? The officer, eager to know more, asked, Ben, what's the story here? Smiling, I opened my computer and played an old video, a 5-year-old surveillance recording of my home. It showed Eric and Tina walking right in and looting the place. My Mont Blanc wallet? Gone. My Rolex watch? Gone. My Hermes coat? Gone. In broad daylight, they practically bagged up the millions my parents saved for my marriage. Tina never realized I'd set up cameras at home, initially to watch my dog for fun. Instead, they caught her in blatant theft. Officer, these luxury items were my pre-marriage assets. Tina sold them after taking them. Isn't that theft and trafficking? I asked. The officer nodded. It is. Exactly, I replied triumphantly, glancing at Eric. Did you think I'd let it slide? Soon after Tina and Eric eloped, I hired a detective who tracked them down. I got the detective to warn Tina, either return my stolen goods, or I'd go to the police. Those items were worth enough to put them behind bars for a long time. Terrified, Tina admitted she'd sold them and put the money in Eric's name. To avoid prison, she transferred the property deed to me as compensation. I flashed a big smile at Eric. Really, thank you, Eric. This house's value has quadrupled in 5 years. It's worth so much more now than what they stole. Eric, hearing this, fainted for real. I figured with money, a solid job, and my wife's passing, life was finally looking peachy. But kicking Lucy and Eric out didn't put an end to it. I underestimated Lucy's persistence. About 2 weeks after the police visit, Lucy came back revitalized. She showed up one day while I was teaching. A short, hefty figure darted into my classroom, carrying a gaunt, pallid child. She kneeled down abruptly, pretending to cry, "Ben, you can't be so heartless. Tina's gone. You can't just keep her house and abandon her child." Lifting the frail kid, she wiped fake tears. "Poor baby. Look how thin he is." The class erupted in whispers and curious eyes turned to me. "Mr. Ben, is that your kid? Why aren't you taking care of him, Mr. Ben? Mr. Ben, the little brother seems so pitiful. You should look after him." I never thought Lucy would pull something like that. My mind went blank for a moment. Then I quickly reassured the students. "Kids, please believe me. She's not my child. She's just making stuff up." Then I walked right up to Lucy, glared at her, and yelled, "This is an elementary school classroom, not a place for your nonsense." "Oh my gosh, what's she babbling about now? Did you take over my daughter's house? Are you neglecting the child?" Lucy pointed a finger at me, looking like she was about to burst with anger. "Ben, have a conscience." I rolled my eyes at her, tried grabbing her sleeve to kick her out. But just as I touched the edge of her sleeve, Lucy dramatically fell to the ground, limp. She mumbled and moaned non-stop. "Oh no, the son-in-law's hitting the mother-in-law. Oh my poor back, my tailbone." I was so thrown off by her act when suddenly, there was a flash. Crap, that's the sound of a camera. I looked up and noticed a reporter had somehow snuck into the back of the classroom. She was snapping photos of me and Lucy like crazy. "Did you get the shot?" Lucy asked. Once she saw the reporter give an okay hand signal, Lucy's eyes were filled with satisfaction. "Ben, you watch out," she exclaimed, flipping herself up like nothing happened, with a smug smile on her face as she dusted off her clothes and walked out. My heart sank. This isn't good. And I was right. The next day, a video spread all over the internet about how a male teacher from an elementary school took over a house and abandoned a child after his wife died of cancer. And when the mother-in-law came to seek justice, he beat her up. And then it even hit Facebook's trending list. People who didn't know the truth, heck, didn't even care to find out, just ate up this sensational report in no time. A heartless, immoral guy like this also gets to teach? Expel him. My God. How pitiful to see the old lady crying on the ground after being hit. The kid looks so skinny. Must be malnourished. Heard he's got money for an Audi, but no money to feed a kid? This guy should be locked up for life. In no time, I became infamous online. People didn't even bother figuring out if that was actually my kid or if I really took over the place. Based on Lucy's crocodile tears, they already sentenced me in their minds. The online harassment was relentless. Tens of thousands cursed me fiercely. They even went to the Ministry of Education's social media to petition for me to be fired. Some local thug even threatened me, saying I'd better watch out. He said whenever he saw me, he'd beat me up. I was debating if I should take a couple days off to lay low when the principal called out of the blue. "Ben, what the hell did you do? Now my office is swarmed with parents demanding you be fired, calling you a scumbag unfit to teach their kids. You're suspended for a month. Stay home and reflect on your actions." I panicked. "Principal, listen, about the child, it's not." Click. All I heard was a dial tone. Damn it. Why suspend me? The next day, Eric called me, back to his old arrogant self. "So, Ben, how's it feel to be roasted online? Crying at home? Huh?" Honestly, I was crying. Because my buddy Leo brought me this bowl of spicy potato noodles, and it's just too spicy. I mean, am I seriously gonna cry over online hate? Unplugged the internet, and it's all peace and quiet. As for the suspension, I've come to terms with it. It's not like I'm fired. Once the truth's out, I'll be back on the job. Eric really thought his scare tactics got me crying. So he carried on. "Ben, you can't mess with me. You've got 3 days to clear out my house. Or else I'll have Lucy kick up another fuss. Stir the public up again. And let's see if you still get to keep your teaching position." After his threats, he smugly hung up. Unbelievable. Leo seemed even more pissed than I was. It's gotta be Eric feeding Lucy ideas, having her fake the tragic sob story. Plus, with the shady reporters, they've trashed your good name. But then he gave me a sly grin. We're not without our own cards to play. What have you got in mind? I asked quickly. My dad knows the village chief where Lucy's from. Took him out for a meal yesterday. Slipped him a couple packs of premium cigarettes, and a few drinks later, the chief spilled some juicy dirt on Lucy. What kind of dirt? Turns out they're all a shady bunch. Leo explained there's a metalwork factory in their village, a pretty big one, and Lucy's been doing odd jobs there. For the past 6 months, she's been sneaking into the warehouse at night, while the security guards napping and stealing steel bars and aluminum sheets to sell. She thought wearing a mask would hide her identity, but nowadays the surveillance recognizes you even with a mask. I had my doubts. If Lucy's been stealing stuff, why hasn't the village done anything? Leo answered, I've heard that the village boss and Lucy are distant relatives. So maybe he's just been turning a blind eye. I felt a surge of satisfaction. This bit of info would be perfect to hold over Lucy, make her apologize, and clear my name. The next day, I drove to Lucy's village. Parked outside their rundown adobe houses. Smoke filled the yard, and Mike was burning paper for his daughter, muttering, Sweetie, don't worry. Your dad will make Ben cough up that house. This man's infertile. If it wasn't for his money, I'd never have let you marry him. Once he clears out, me and your mom will sell the house and help take care of Eric and the kid. In my mind, I rolled my eyes at him like 800 times. Mike finally noticed me standing at their front door. He stood, hands on hips, smirking at me. What's up? Got you scared now? He taunted. Listen, Ben, you gotta know when to fold. Just give us the house back, and we won't make a scene at your school. You get to keep your job. So when are you moving out? I calmly smiled. You guys are celebrating too soon. I'm not here for that. You know your wife's been sneaking out a bunch of valuable stuff from the village factory over the past 6 months to sell? You had to know about that, right? The moment I mentioned his wife stealing, Mike's face turned beet red with anger. What nonsense are you talking? He snapped. My wife's been clean as a whistle all her life. She's never stolen a thing. Stop pointing fingers. Oh? I slowly pulled a USB drive from my bag and waved it in front of him. I've got surveillance footage of her stealing. He was shocked. Little did he know, there wasn't a single clip of surveillance on that drive. It was a bluff. Mike looked confused. He didn't seem guilty. More like he genuinely didn't know anything about it. Maybe Lucy did all this behind his back? I asked, where's your wife? Mike pointed to the shabby house behind him. She's inside. I smirked. Didn't you say I'm falsely accusing someone? All right, let me go in and confront her. You can listen in from outside and see if I'm telling the truth. If you don't want to do it my way, I'll hand this USB to the cops. Embezzling collective goods on this scale could get someone jailed for a long, long time. Your wife will be stuck in prison forever. You're gonna be stuck bringing her prison meals. Mike hesitated for a few seconds and decided to follow my lead. Sure enough, Lucy was inside. When she saw me, she wasn't very approachable either. I wasted no time. Stop causing trouble at the school, I said. Lucy rolled her eyes. Give up the house first. All right then, playing hardball it is. I stared her down. Don't blame me when I don't hold back. I know your secret. What if it slips out? I hinted. How would you face the whole village or your hubby? Lucy was stunned. She sneakily glanced toward the door to make sure Mike wasn't there and then looked back at me. Her tone softened. How much do you know about me and Eric? What? Her and Eric? Wow. Unexpected bonus round. I suddenly remembered Eric's forearm and that dazzling antique gold bracelet. I played it cool. The gold bracelet. The mention of the bracelet brought a look of desperation to Lucy's face. She sighed and started reminiscing while I just watched. Intrigued. You know, from the first moment I laid eyes on Eric, it stirred something in me. She confessed. He looked so much like my first boyfriend. My first love was a city youth forced to work here in the countryside. He kicked me to the curb to return to the city, but I could never let go. I've thought about him my whole life. 6 years ago, when I had that stroke and was in the hospital, you introduced Eric to me as a caregiver. Since then, I've been secretly watching him, admiring him. Even when I found out he was flirting with my daughter and planning to run away, I couldn't expose him. I just stole some gold from the factory and had it made into a bracelet. I lied to my daughter, saying it was a family heirloom we just found behind the house, and gave it to her. I knew she'd give it to Eric, so in a way it was my secret gift to him. Half a year ago, when I heard my daughter had cancer, I knew she was struggling. I kept stealing from the factory and sending her money to make her life a bit easier. Oh my! I was almost in tears. Such a poignant, secret love story. Weirdly touching. While I was processing all this drama from Lucy, a yell broke the tension from outside. "Lucy, you witch!" Mike kicked the door open, bursting in with a shovel in hand, eyes blazing with anger, ready to strike. "You dared cheat on me with that pretty boy," he yelled. "I'm gonna end you today." Whoa, better keep my distance before I get splattered with anything. I shot Lucy a pitying look and quietly snuck out. With Mike now busy planning a divorce and seeing Eric as his top enemy, they wouldn't care about me anymore. Naturally, they stopped stirring up trouble and my internet drama began to fade. A month later, the principal told me I could return to teaching. I strolled to my car, whistling happily. Suddenly, a scruffy man appeared right in front of me, grabbing my arm. I glanced, only to recognize the once high and mighty Eric. I was more disgusted than surprised and tried to shake him off, but his grip just tightened, pulling me down onto my knees. Couldn't believe it. What act was he playing now? Eric pulled out a report from his pocket, handed it to me with a sad face. I read it. Stomach cancer, late stage. Oh, no wonder he and Tina were made for each other. They even had diseases in sync. Lung cancer, stomach cancer, a match made in tragic irony. I tossed the paper at him. "Why are you coming to me because you got cancer? I'm not lending you money for treatment." Eric clung to my leg. "I'm not here to borrow money." He went on. "The doctor said there's no way to treat my illness here, but there's hope in America. Lily's a doctor in the US, right? Please, help me get in touch with her. Tell her I'm sick. She wouldn't ignore me." Hearing him mention Lily, my blood boiled. I couldn't help but kick him away. "Lily? You think you can even mention Lily's name? Back then, my sister loved you so much, she didn't care you weren't as educated as her. She still introduced you to our parents and asked me to help you find a job. I thought you were smart enough, so I let you take care of Tina's dad for a bit. I didn't expect you to hook up with Tina. You two did stuff in the new house my parents prepared for you." I yelled at him. "Do you know how long it took for Lily to get over you? If it wasn't for you, she wouldn't have left for the US. Get over it. Lily hates your guts. She's forgotten all about you." Eric shook his head stubbornly. "No way. No way. Lily said she'd only love me in this life. She can't have forgotten me. If she didn't love me, why did she leave so far? Tina's dead now, I'm single again. Tell Lily I'm willing to start over with her. She'll agree for sure." His delusions made me sick. "Fine." I pulled out my phone. "You think Lily still loves you? Let's call and ask." Under Eric's eager eyes, I dialed the phone. I put it on speaker. "Hey sis, Eric wants to get back with you. Oh, and he has stomach cancer, wants you to help in the US. Before I could finish, there was a thunderous roar from the other end. "Tell him to get lost." The light in Eric's eyes dimmed away. I sneered at him. "Hear that? Lily got over you a long time ago. I heard from my dad. Mike and Lucy are getting divorced." He heard Mike knocked her out with a shovel. It's scary. He was so mad he went to the police and ratted her out, saying she was embezzling. She barely recovered and got hauled off to jail. Mike despises Eric now, including his grandson too. Eric knows he's dying and wants to entrust the child to Mike. But Mike's heart is like rock. He threw them both out. Leo lounged on my couch, drinking, as he shared the latest gossip with me. I took a sip, nodding in satisfaction. Never expected Mike to be such a no-nonsense guy. Leo and I were just talking about how Eric brought this on himself when we heard a faint baby's cry at the door. When I opened it, there was a basket with a baby inside. He blinked up at me, innocent and wide-eyed. "Isn't this Eric's kid?" Leo was shocked. I looked around. Not a trace of Eric anywhere. Damn, did this guy ditch his kid and run? Oh, there's a letter in the basket. Leo fished out a piece of paper from under the baby. Ben, I'm sorry I hurt you and Lily. Getting stomach cancer is karma. I have no money for treatment, so I'm going back to my hometown to wait for the end. I'm not afraid to die, but I am afraid no one will care for my child. Mike hates the kid and Lucy's in jail. After much thought, I figured you're the best one to raise him. Because after all, he's Tina's son, and you once had a bond, as husband and wife. You're kind and have a big heart. I trust you'll care for him till he grows up and gets married. You can't have kids, so having a son to take care of you works out well. I can't offer money, but I'm leaving you the gold bracelet from Mike's family. This letter stunk of emotional manipulation, and it nearly made me and Leo puke. Eric, your plans are shamelessly bold. You and Tina lived on my dime for 5 years, and now you're asking me to raise your kid? Do I look like a fool to you? Leo asked tentatively. You're not seriously going to take care of him, are you? I shot him a glare. Do I look like I have a screw loose? Leo breathed a sigh of relief. He pulled out that glittering bracelet from the basket's bottom. I said, that's stolen loot from the factory. I should take it to the police. Wait. Leo weighed the bracelet, looking puzzled. The weight's off. Doesn't feel like gold, more like some rare metal. He's a physics teacher, he knows his metals. Don't take it to the police just yet. Let me check it out in the lab. 2 hours later, Leo called. Sounding pretty excited, he told me, Ben, I figured out why Tina and Eric both got cancer. That bracelet isn't gold. It's some kind of alloy with high radium content, just gold-plated. Radium? Isn't that the stuff that gives off natural radiation constantly? No wonder they both got cancer. Living with this thing, it's like being in a reactor. Marie Curie died because of it. Tina and Eric were soaking up radiation for 5 years. No wonder one got lung cancer, the other stomach. Lucy never expected it either. Her eager gift to her lover turned out to kill them and her daughter by extension. So Ben, what are you going to do about the baby? I looked down at the peacefully sleeping infant in the basket. His face was untainted, as if not touched by his parents' sins. His lashes fluttered, dreaming a sweet dream. I picked up the child and headed to the precinct. Officer, I found this baby. I asked the officer what happens to a foundling. They said he'd be sent to an orphanage, waiting to be adopted. His future, good or bad, won't have anything to do with me. I might pray he gets a loving adoptive family. Tina wasn't wrong. I'm a nice, caring, and forgiving guy at heart. But raising a child for a cheating boyfriend? Sorry, no matter how cute the kid is, I can't. I walked out of the precinct into the sunlight. I strode forward, towards the future that's mine. And it's looking brighter.